Hello, and welcome to the COBYS Family Services 2022 Annual Banquet Presentation. I'm Mark Cunningham, Executive Director, and with me is Ann Stokes, our Director of Development. I call this our banquet program because it is the program we traditionally have presented at an in-person banquet. The theme for this year's program is Facing Reality. But in a case of unintended foreshadowing, we had to face reality when we realized that holding an in-person banquet wasn't a preferred way for our supporters and friends to connect this year. So, we are back to an online presentation like last year, and in looking towards the future, reimagining opportunities for our valued supporters like you to connect with our ministries. We are grateful for your interest in joining us to hear more about COBYS and those we serve. In one more example of facing realities, unfortunately, Ann's voice has given out, so she will not be participating as much as she normally would. Even with the adjustments to how we gather with you and present an update about our ministries, one thing about COBYS remains constant. For us, everything we do starts with our mission statement. Motivated by Christian faith, COBYS Family Services educates, supports, and empowers children and adults to reach their full potential. And our goal with this program is to show you how we work to fulfill that mission in the real and meaningful ways we serve those who need our help in the reality of today's world. I'd like to share a quick story that illustrates the somewhat uncomfortable side to our necessary work. I was at a leadership conference and was at a table of 4 other leaders, all of them in the for-profit world. We were introducing ourselves and sharing a bit about what we do for work, sharing about our families, just getting to know each other a little bit. When I was asked what I did, I shared that I worked for a Christian agency that provides foster care, adoption, counseling, and education for families. And they all seemed to think that this was a good thing. And one of them commented, "Wow, you must really love what you do." So now I had a choice to make. I could answer saying that, yes, I am glad to be part of an organization that does the work that we do, and leave it at that. That would have been the truth. Or I could say a bit more. And I chose to say a bit more that day. I chose to tell the whole truth. And here's what I said. I said, I love the people I work with. They do amazing things every day. I love our mission. I love being part of an organization that is making very real and often eternal differences in the lives of those we are called to serve. But we work with kids that have been abused and neglected, sometimes in ways that are too horrible to talk about. We work with families that lack parenting skills, that are homeless, that are incarcerated, that are addicted. And for every successful adoption we finalize, there is at least one person, and oftentimes many people, who are experiencing loss, and many times continue to struggle in significant ways. So, while I've been at COBYS for more than 25 years now, for those reasons, I haven't been able to come to the place where I can say that I love what I do. And they all responded exactly the same way. They stared at me for 4 or 5 seconds without saying a word, and then they turned to each other and then resumed conversations about their work experiences. And that was the last mention of what I did for work for that entire day. So the good news is that if I'm ever asked about what I do and I want to be out of that conversation, I think I figured out a pretty good way of accomplishing that. And quite frankly, the gravity of what we do affects our staff. Personally, I occasionally lose sleep or can't eat when things are weighing on me. Well, I can always eat, just not as quickly as usual. And that is the reality of our work. And people often react that way when they get even some of the details. But we don't want you as supporters or those you might talk to about COBYS to be scared away by the reality. Our work is also uplifting, life-changing, and redemptive. Unfortunately, to be uplifted, redeemed, and life-altered, you often must start in a difficult or even dangerous place. And those are the realities we face at COBYS and what we have decided to share with you in this program. Now, most of you know that our services include work in foster care, adoption, counseling, and family life education. Some of you are also aware we have a specialized team of staff providing foster care management for Lancaster County. That is our permanency unit. But those are categories of work. They cover a broad spectrum of duties and people and society generally understand. Most people, like the other leaders in my story, would say, yes, we're so grateful that there are agencies and organizations like COBYS that are around to do that work. And some, like many of you, even support that work in some way. But in reality, what do we really do? Well, we can tell you the real work, the reality of the work we do, is anything but broad spectrums. It is often very hard. It is often very messy. It is emotional, and at times, it's devastating. But it is also joyous. It is sometimes celebratory, and we are convinced it can be life-altering. It can be those things because people like you support us as we strive every day to approach our work as a calling, to carry out this work in servanthood with a goal from our mission statement to help everyone reach their full God-given potential. But how do we show you that in a 1-hour program? Well, one way is to share stories. We are, of course, mindful to be careful about what we can and can't say for the privacy of our clients. So ironically, to show you some of the real work we do, we invented a fictional case study. Through a documentary format, we're going to introduce you to Layla Jackson. Now, Layla is an 11-year-old girl in foster care. And to repeat the disclaimer, this is a fictional case inspired by real clients. By walking you through this example and parts of real stories we can share, you'll see both the joys and challenges we face. We hope you will gain an even deeper appreciation for not only the work that we do, but how we go.
Meet Layla. Layla is a bright but somewhat reserved biracial 11-year-old girl. She and her 8-year-old brother Salvador live with their parents, but too often need to fend for themselves. They are homeless, often neglected, and have witnessed drug use. They occasionally have been the victims of physical abuse, Salvador more than Layla, although she tries to protect him. Layla performs well in school, but truancy issues challenge any hope for good grades for her. She doesn't have anger issues to the degree of her brother, but she has engaged in dangerous behavior, mostly to survive. Teachers are mandated reporters, so when Layla's teacher realized what she and her brother were experiencing, a call to the Pennsylvania Child Line was made. As the child welfare safety protocols responded, the siblings' lives changed drastically. A child in foster care needs services to address their unique challenges. COBYS, with support from donors and the partnership of resource parents, coordinates care in a way that builds and nurtures the positives in a child's life while addressing the challenges. And each person is more than just the challenges they face. Everyone experiences challenges in life. Some of us are fortunate enough to be equipped to handle challenges and have a support structure for assistance. Many are not so fortunate. The sad, unfortunate truth is that many factors can lead to a downfall. Bad choices, troubling circumstances, a lack of role models, and past trauma can compound and spiral into issues beyond our control and ability to fix on our own. The hopes and dreams of the past crumble.
When I was at Permanency, my job was to help the biological parents reunify with their child. So I would make referrals for, drug and alcohol, mental health, help them get into CareerLink, which helps them build resumes, to get jobs, things like that. At Permanency, I felt like a calling to help the biological parents because everybody makes mistakes. Everybody deserves a second chance. God isn't judging them, so we shouldn't be judging them. And I think that sometimes people just need a helping hand. Sometimes people don't have the support. They don't have a mom or dad or a sibling helping them or supporting them along the way. And so that's what we were there for.
Social institutions step in and the process begins to work to find a path toward recovery. And a plan is established. Goals, rehabilitation, and requirements are set. It is an uphill climb at best, and homelessness only compounds the challenge. COBYS can't solve problems for biological parents, but we do encourage them, walk with them, and connect them to services providing a path towards successful parenting and reaching their goals, including those of reunification with their children. Laws and courts play a vital role in the foster care system. Lancaster County received almost 1,300 Child Protective Service reports of abuse to investigate in 2020, and over 5,900 General Protective Services reports that don't rise to the level of abuse. Unfortunately, countless cases go unreported. Once the report is investigated, the courts determine if separation is warranted, and if so, the process begins. There are challenges working within the legal system. There is a lack of control of the process, personnel turnover where new judges mean new ways of proceeding within the system, and conflicting or duplicate tasks. Layla's case is brought before a judge who decides that for their safety and well-being, she and her brother should be separated from their parents. Layla and her brother are processed for foster care. They are fortunate to be assigned together to a COBYS foster family. Siblings aren't always so lucky to be kept together, especially when the sibling group is large. But for now, Layla and her brother are together, safe, and being cared for.
Now we've met Layla, our fictional representation of every child we serve. While she is fictional, her story is not atypical of the kinds of cases we get. I'd like to introduce Mary Sorber, the Director of Placement Services at COBYS. Mary oversees our foster care and adoption services, as well as those provided by our resource home and the permanency units. Mary, if we can, let's take a quick step back and take a little more time to talk about the first section of the video titled, How Did We Really Get Here? Can you give us a sense of the context surrounding biological parents and children needing to be placed into foster care?
I certainly can. First, let me just say I'm pleased to be sharing with everyone a bit more of the reality behind the work we do. It is so important to understand the realities facing kids and families in our community every day. Most children end up in foster care because of addiction and generational poverty that leads to abuse and an overall breakdown of the family. Everyone needs a support system, and when the family breaks down like this, there is no one left to rely on. I cannot stress enough how important a lack of support system is in impacting the overall ability of individuals to function. Too often, it is too easy to make the biological parents the villains. While the unfortunate truth is that sometimes biological parents have engaged in criminal activity and have committed crimes against their children, sometimes unthinkable crimes, but that is certainly not always the case. The cases involving criminal activity are the ones you hear about on the news. So many people view biological parents of foster children in the worst light. For many biological parents, criminal action is not what has led their children to be placed in foster care. Unfortunate factors often related to societal issues become overwhelming. Poverty, addiction, seemingly locked into a way of life with little hope of breaking out are all contributors. There are often similarities to situations, but every case is different. We need to come into each case with a sense of empathy because the kinds of issues that affect the biological parents that get them to where they are could happen to any of us. Unfortunately, we have cases from all walks of life with all kinds of struggles. The goal almost every time is to try to reunify the children with their parents if they can right the ship to be able to care for their children and themselves. Our goal in partnership with the County Children and Youth Agency, resource parents, and a team of other providers is to empower birth parents to provide safe and loving homes for their children. No one is looking for perfection. We are always focused on safety, permanency, and well-being.
Thanks, Mary, and that's an important reminder. There, but for the grace of God, go I. Please briefly describe the role of the courts in the foster care process and the challenges of the new and changing landscape of the courts and of the County Children and Youth Services.
We need to stay informed when changes are made in the judicial process. The last thing we want is to miss a deadline or omit information that can help the process run smoother for our children and families. We try to lessen the stress that naturally comes from having to go to court. The same is true of changes in personnel in the system. Each judge has a certain way of doing things, and it is crucial to be prepared for each case. The county agency is experiencing many of the same problems facing so many sectors in society and business. Staffing is at a critically low level. This adds responsibilities to our staff, and it slows the process in several ways. We must adapt to those situations.
So Mary, can you please set the stage for what happens next by briefly describing what that first 24 to 48 hours looks like for kids entering foster care? There's obviously a tremendous amount of activity, a lot of chaos for these kids. What does that typically look like for kids like Layla?
So the first thing that happens is that the county agency contacts COBYS for a resource home. When a resource home is identified, typically with very limited information, the family is chosen. The resource home coordinator prepares a backpack with necessary and age-appropriate items. The judge signs the court order for emergency placement. The child is either brought to COBYS, picked up at the agency, the hospital, or somewhere else. Arrangements are made to bring the child to the new resource home. And within 24 to 72 hours of that child going to their new resource home, we have another court hearing called the shelter care hearing. At this hearing, it's decided that there are enough allegations that need to be investigated. 10 days later, we go back to court again to what is called the adjudication hearing. And what happens at that hearing is that it is decided that the allegations warrant the need for the child to remain in foster care, and the child permanency plan is approved. Oh, and by the way, we do all of this after hours as well. Children do not come into foster care only between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. That's a kind of typical start to foster care, and that is a lot of activity in a very short time. To no one's surprise, it can be very traumatic for the children. Providing a sense of calm and safety and trust during this time is absolutely crucial.
Well, thanks, Mary, for that quick glimpse of what really happens. And thanks to you and your team who are there for our kids every day and night, providing comfort, calm, and honest answers to really difficult questions. I think we can all say we feel a little stress just hearing about it, so we can only imagine the impact it has on our kids that are going through it. If we try to put ourselves in each person's shoes, we can try to understand what kids, parents, and foster families go through. But that is the reality of cases every day. So the process has begun. Let's see where we go from here.
Layla and her brother have been assigned a caseworker to be the point person for COBYS to oversee their care during the foster care process. COBYS caseworkers receive 40 hours of training annually to provide expert quality care. They are knowledgeable of best practices on topics including reporting abuse, human services regulations, ethics, trauma, attachment, resilience, and strengthening parents and families. This is done to provide the best care possible for the children and families we serve. There is a long list of duties performed by the caseworker and agency to assure children like Layla get the best care.
As a foster care caseworker, we meet with the families at least twice a month. So when a child first comes into care, we do meet with the family and foster child every week for 4 weeks. And then after that, it becomes twice a month. So either we meet them in the home or at their appointments, parent-child visits, dental appointments, therapy appointments, things like that.
We're connecting with the child. We are checking in to see how behaviors are going, if there's any supports that the resource family needs, whether that be extra services for the child like therapy or developmental services to help them.
We make sure that they're safe in their resource home, make sure that they have beds to sleep in and that they are getting their basic needs met, stuff like that.
We are also communicating with the county worker on a regular basis to keep them updated on what's going on with the child and with the resource family.
We help them with enrolling in school, enrolling in medical or dental providers, things along those lines.
We're going to the court hearings for the child as they take place throughout the year. And we're writing monthly reports to the county, reporting on how the child's doing in the home and anything new with services or changes or behaviors.
The list could just go on and on.
While a plan and goals are put in place and families work toward reunification beyond a safe place to call home, life for foster kids goes on. There are health and education services to set up and coordinate. Care professionals at every level offer many kinds of therapies and support to help move a foster child toward healing.
We always start with an initial assessment, which is a comprehensive gathering of information of their background, their history, the different experiences that they've had, to understand a bit of their story and what all is involved. And I usually, if I know that there's been some trauma history, will do a trauma assessment to see what their level of post-traumatic stress symptoms are currently, and that would help to determine diagnosis as well as treatment.
The most important thing that people need to know about children and adults who've experienced trauma is that they have experienced circumstances that cause them to believe that the world is not a safe place and to have difficulty trusting others. And so simply to place a child or a teenager in a safe home doesn't mean that that will immediately go away. And so it's important for us to remember that that child, that teenager will need time, will need our tremendous patience with them as they experience life and begin to recognize that the trauma is over and that they can begin to feel safe again.
Mm-hmm. So without maybe providing too many specifics, I see a wide range of trauma. That can include things like witnessing a parent die from a drug overdose, physical abuse that includes bruises, concussions, broken bones, severe neglect that would include not being fed, maybe getting only one meal a day. There's also sexual abuse. I've had a child who was involved in a car accident where there was a fatality. Children being left unsupervised for long periods of time and having to just fend for themselves. A sibling dying from abuse, and much more. But those are just some of the things that I have actually worked with in my time in COBYS.
I've seen children who have experienced horrific trauma and walked with them through conversations about their trauma, through their grief and loss over saying goodbye to their families, and then seen them connect with a wonderful resource family that has helping them to thrive and grow in ways that I really didn't think were possible. Children have a wonderful ability to do that, and so being able to watch that process and walk with a child through that process has been an incredible experience for me and continues to give me hope every day with each child, with each adult that I meet, that there is a possibility for healing.
After all, every child should be able to have fun, play with friends or siblings, have a hobby, and participate in a sport or activities. And every child should be praised. Behind the human interaction with our clients, there is another challenging world, the governmental world of red tape. To serve kids like Layla and families like hers, we need to create and secure contracts with each of the counties with which we work. Each county is different, each contract is different, as are payment schedules and contract approvals. Maintaining sufficient financial reserves to carry us through until we are reimbursed is crucial to our operation. Even though the bureaucracy of youth services can be baffling and infuriating, we try hard to remember our focus. It's kids like Layla. What do they need, and how can we make their lives better? That brings us back to compassionate care. Nothing exemplifies that more than resource families. Called to serve, resource families provide love, safety, and a semblance of stability for foster children. Acceptance and patience are key as these families manage with the hard truths experienced in the lives of foster children. COBYS recruits and trains families who are drawn to be there for kids who feel like no one else is. Foster kids need time and examples of unconditional love to get to the point of trust. COBYS resource families receive training beyond the state requirements with additional courses specific to trauma, disruptive behavior, and not giving up on foster children.
So you can see that COBYS strives to provide comprehensive care for our kids and our families. Remember, these kids are experiencing tremendous upheaval before and during foster care. During foster care, we provide stability and safety while helping them move forward toward a better tomorrow. But before we get to the resource families, the foster families, I would like to emphasize a point about the nuts and bolts, the administrative side of foster care. On some levels, this is both fascinating and infuriating because none of the care, compassion, and hope that we provide can happen without being approved to do so. The video clip alluded to that situation, but I would like to share just a little bit more. We have agreements or contracts to work with 10 counties for foster care and adoption services, though the majority of our care is provided to kids in just 3 counties, Lancaster, Berks, and Schuylkill, with the 7 additional counties having various levels of services with us. So this means that we have 10 separate contracts to provide services for kids and families who live in those counties. Now, each county runs their own program for child welfare services, so their rules, regulations, and structures are specific to them. And while there are similarities across counties, child welfare is providing safety for children, each county has a different contract system and definitions of care. So COBYS must submit our contract for services to each of the counties, negotiate what is included with each level of service, and how much each level costs. So as you might imagine, when dealing with government institutions, none of that is a very speedy process. We certainly present our proposals on time, but the approval process often lags 6 months or more behind when we start providing a service in that contract year. So, as an example, just this year, 3 of the 10 counties were more than 6 months behind schedule. So we care for kids in good faith that the contracts will eventually be approved and that we will get the funding for the services that we have already provided. Once contracts are approved, we must then spend time back billing for the services rendered months earlier. We do this because there really isn't any other choice. It is not an option not to provide care because we haven't been paid. This is just one small example of the many challenges we face working with counties and the state. So thank you for indulging me on my little semi-rant here. While we usually tell you stories of kids and the care that we provide, and we should focus on that, they are our most important work, I wanted you to know that there are also professionals like those in administration and accounting who care about these kids just as much as the frontline workers by doing the thankless work they do to make it possible. It is important for our supporters to know that there are many ways members of our staff support kids. So let's get back to Layla's story, which has reached the compassionate care chapter. From upheaval to a swirl of chaos to trying to give her a sense of stability and normalcy. You've seen how therapy and classes can help kids like Layla begin to address their trauma and move forward. A driving force to make that happen falls on the foster families. So as Layla and her brother settle into their time in foster care, let's hear about the process from the foster or resource family side. We recently talked to Connie and Rodrigo Ugalde about life with their 3 biological sons and 3 adopted children.
My name's Connie, and this is...
My name is Rodrigo.
We were married for 22 years.
Yep.
And we have 3 biological sons. Isaiah's 19, Elijah's 17 and Josiah's 14. And then we adopted twins, Mateo and Mariah, they're 9, and then Naya is 6.
I wanted to do this before even I got married, and it was in our heart to do it. And so after having 3 sons, Connie decided not to have any more natural children because that delivery was kind of tough. So we said, well, the only way to do this through foster and adoption. So that's why we decided to do it.
And we always had a heart for kids and to help other people that had kids in foster care.
So we took about, I don't know, maybe 1-2 years. And then the idea came back again. So we pray about it. God, you gotta give us something, And our church has these prophetic weekends. So you go into the front, people you never really talk to, and they pray for you and give you words of, wisdom or whatever. And we came together, didn't say a word about anything. We're like, hey, how you doing? And we start praying, and within 5 minutes, they're like, hey, this is gonna sound weird to you guys, but the word adoption and foster is coming to us. And before you know, it's like, oh my goodness, the God's telling you go for it, and you had to do this. And me and her, we just looking at each other. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, really? I mean, how obvious is that?
The one thing that surprised me about the foster care process was, with Naya's case, how close I got with her birth family. Because we didn't have that with our first case with the twins family. That was something I didn't think that would happen. And I feel like her family really enjoyed getting to know us, and that we would spend time with them.
And people say, oh my word, you guys are so good, you guys are so great, you guys are so amazing, and you're not really doing anything other than just opening your house and and giving your life to them, and that is just huge. It is tough. So just the fact that we have the privilege to be able to intervene in their lives and to be able to offer them the future to do whatever they want to do it's a huge privilege. It really is. It is not an easy thing to do. You have to have a lot of grace to be able to deal with what these kids are doing, that they're going through, knowing their history, what has been done to them, and move forward past that and see the parents, see their families for what they are. A lot of the time just lost people, and yeah, it's not easy.
Since we have connections with one bio parent and not the other one with our other 2 children, I kind of see both worlds of it. And the one doesn't have any contact with birth mom, they have lots of questions. Some I can answer, some I can't. But there's such a yearning in them to meet her, and I get it to some extent, as much as I can, because they don't know, they don't remember her. And so they get a little, especially my daughter, she gets a little upset about not being able to see her birth mom because her sister can see her birth mom and her birth siblings. And, I try and talk to her about different things that happened and why it's not possible right now. And but I see the other side of Naya seeing her birth siblings and her mom, and so far it's been a healthy thing. But you always have to watch when it's not going to be a good thing anymore, and.
You're trying to avoid that heartbreaking, right? Hopefully there's no such a thing, but you're trying to avoid that, and it's almost like you can't stop it, right? It's almost like just coming and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just to pray and prepare for whatever will be the aftermath of that.
So the courtroom process with the twins was pretty cut and dry. I don't even remember how many times we went to court, but it feels like it wasn't very many. But they also had a quicker case. But there wasn't too much drama in the courtroom with that.
It was kind of interesting because we thought we were going to get, you get the phone call, right? And they said to you, hey, you're going to have these twins or whatever. And yeah, it's a pretty sure thing, it's a pretty sure thing, and, they're going to go through adoption because of the backstory. And you're like, wow, that's awesome. So, we had to go to a different county to have an interview to see if we'll be like the right parents. So on the way back, it was about an hour. It was in Montgomery County. We went to one of the social workers from COBYS, and we just driving over there. So we had the interview. And they're like, well, you guys are great, and well, we have more families, and so don't get your hopes too high. Okay, so we're driving back home. Wasn't even like a half an hour. And the way back, we got a phone call, yeah, you guys are going to have the kids, right? Mm-hmm. So we're like, okay, this is going to be great. But then the whole process took almost 2 years. And then we had the next one. Again, it was an easy adoption. It's a baby, had some health issues. Mom is going to lose the case, and mom hasn't even been in to see the baby, right? That's what we're told. The baby very much abandoned. So if you guys want to go and take care of the baby, even now, it would be great. So that was our expectation, going to see this baby. Mom haven't been there since birth, and it's going to be 2 years. So when we got to the hospital, we started asking questions to the nurses. Hey, what about the mom? Oh, the mom's here every day. And we're like, what? Oh, no, mom's here every day. She's very concerned about the baby. And you're like, what? So whatever information we got from the county social worker was not accurate at all. And that right there is when you start like, ooh, this is some red flags in here. That was the beginning of the pain.
Of the court. We're talking about
the court, right. So the child had issues with her health. So she needed to have these alarms, these monitors, because she would stop breathing in the middle of the night. So, yeah, that was another learning curve, right? And, thank goodness after a while, she got better. Then she stopped using, those alarms. We used to go to court every month, and it was always the same. How's it going? How's she doing? What is the mom doing? Great, see you back in a month. So we did that for, 3 months or something like that. So I remember that the 1 month I said, listen, I don't want to really take a vacation for this because it's going to be the same thing. And she said, yeah, don't worry, it's going to be okay. It's going to be the same thing. So I remember at work, and she calls me about 2:30. She says to me, we lost the baby. And I'm like, what do you mean we lost the baby? Well, the judge thought it was a good idea for her to come back to the family house because now she has a husband, doesn't have the alarms, and we're good to go. So I remember she telling me, she's crying her eyes out, and I'm at work, too. And she's like, yeah, and the mom didn't even know about this, so she has nothing. So she didn't even have transportation to go to the house. So she had to go and take the baby and the mom, took them to Walmart, and buying a few things.
Get formula and bottles, and she
diapers.
Was not prepared to have a baby in the house.
Right. So then she said, we can come back next day to say our goodbyes, right? And yeah, that was one of the toughest things we had done. I came home from work, and it was like somebody died in the house. Right away, I said, well, God, what happened, And yeah, it was it was a very, very tough time for all of us, even for our kids. We didn't know how much that, I don't want to say damage, but that much hurt to because that didn't really say much at all. But years later, we talk about it, and they actually give the testimony that was one of the toughest times in their lives. And yeah, it was very
dark time.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you would ask my opinion at that point, we're done. This is, it just hurts too much. We're done. We just shut down. But somehow Connie had the clarity of mind to say, you know what, we're gonna keep pushing this, and we're gonna have good relationship with the mom. You never know what's gonna happen. I'm like, just forget about this. We're done. But she didn't listen to me. So
I just had a feeling that this wasn't final. I knew how the house situation was, and I just knew it wasn't going to be a final thing. And so I wanted to keep that connection with her. They didn't have any baby equipment, like nothing. They didn't even have a crib. So when we went to visit that next day that she was taken, I unloaded all of our baby stuff with her. That way Naya could have familiar things.
About 3 months later, we got a phone call from COBYS. I don't remember who it was. And they're like, well, Naya was back in care, and the mom requested us to be the foster. But one of the things that I wanted, and maybe she wanted too, is that in our house would be no color, right? We're all the same. We're colorblind. We're all the same, and we have no difference. And that's how we treated everybody. So it was kind of interesting when I would go out, to find somebody, and they would say to me, oh, you have black kids. And I would be like, what? Oh, yeah. And I'm like, you're right. They are. I haven't noticed, And really, a lot of the times you don't really notice. I mean, you don't see that. You just see the person, right?
I try to be with people that are different colors and find families that have other girls that are brown or even not white,
But then you walk into the store, right, that you've been always welcome or whatever, and then you walk down, with 2 African-American kids, right? And their looks that you get. I mean, seriously, I know people don't do it, but if you had that, if you're gonna adopt kids that are different than you know what I mean? You're gonna get some of that.
And so it's made me aware of things that you don't think about and you say, or just jokes you make, and yeah, they're not okay because...
Yeah, just not okay. Mm-hmm.
I would say, first and foremost, as a couple, you need to be on the same page and not just, okay, I'll do it because you want to do it. Because it is stressful, it is hard, and it does test everything, pretty much every aspect of your marriage. There are days when you're just so stressed that you don't even want to talk to each other because it's just stressful talking about it. So if you're not on the same page, it's going to be a big failure.
Yeah,
either in that time or down the road when you're raising children with trauma. I hear all the time, I don't know how you can attach to these kids. I would be afraid it would break my heart. I'm like, it does break your heart. But if you don't attach to them and you don't form that attachment with them, you're doing them a disservice because they need that attachment from whoever's caring for them for however little time you have.
It's a whole family ordeal. It's going to affect the whole family. So you have to get this, your own children on board. We asked them, hey, this is what we want to do. What do you guys think? And if you guys think this is not a good idea, we're not going to do it. And they thought about it, and they prayed about it, and they said, yeah, we can do this.
Not that they knew everything that would happen, but...
So we did it the first time. We did it the first time and the second time. So those are the things that you must, and you must have a big refrigerator because you're gonna go through a lot of food.
We knew some families that have been with COBYS, and they had really great things to say about them. And we knew we wanted to go with a Christian agency. Because obviously we're Christians and we wanted to have the same belief system as, and be able to open up about things and have them pray for us and, different things that you wouldn't get that from a secular agency. Every time we had questions, which there were many times that we had questions, they always had an answer or they were going to find out the answer if they didn't know, and it was just good to get a Christian perspective and to know that we're on the same page in that aspect because that was a big aspect in deciding to do foster care was, a calling. And so we felt that COBYS would have the same calling, to help children and in foster care.
for the longest time, COBYS felt like family, it really did. Especially in the tough times, it was good to know that you can call and you just, and they knew that you were going through a tough time, and they can feel the pain, and they can support you. And even though there's not much really they can do for you, just being there was very important to us, and we really appreciate that. Whatever pain or suffering you think you're going to go through, it's still worth it for the sake of the children, because they deserve whatever you can give them, whatever you can provide for them. And if that means you had to go through some dark times sometimes, it is worth it.
We are so grateful to Connie and Rodrigo for being a part of our presentation. We appreciate not only their open, honest feedback, but also the time, effort, and work and love they put into growing their family through adoption with so much compassion and care. We thank them for sharing their journey. Many times in the foster care and adoption world, there are still societal and identity issues regarding blended families that need extra attention. Brian Dixon, a COBYS foster and adoptive parent, as well as an adoptee himself, has lived this experience and now leads training sessions for COBYS related to multicultural fostering and adoption. He shared a few thoughts and observations with us in a recent interview conducted on Zoom.
My name is Brian Dixon. I have a wife and 5 kids. 2 of our children we adopted through foster care with COBYS. All of our kids are 6 years old and under, so we're a pretty busy family. Growing up, I also was raised from age 9 on. I was full-time raised with a white American family, actually a Mennonite family in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Before that, I was back and forth between them and my biological mother. It was just an arrangement between my biological mom and my later would-be adoptive parents, or I guess you could say legal guardians. I never took on their last name. But I did have that back and forth lifestyle between that any foster kid might have, and specifically as it relates to a difference in race and ethnicity. Like COBYS, I feel like they gave us a good bit of resources, but I also think that for myself, they did a very great job at making me think about this stuff. But that's where it starts, when you have to actually kind of come to terms with, oh, okay, yeah, this stuff is actually important. This is actually stuff that these kids are dealing with, kids of a different race and ethnicity when they come into our home. It's not like they're just going to another home, but that we're different. We look different, and they think about this stuff. Because of my childhood and then going through the COBYS training, it actually kind of made me process a little bit about, oh yeah, I guess that's how I did process that. I didn't realize it at the time. But the most important, I think, is just parents, you got to make the effort to look for those resources, reading books, movies, talking to other people that have lived it, and just really making that effort to not just understand this stuff, but understand the importance of it. Like little things that I talk to the COBYS families about is, maybe you go to a church that's more mixed in race and ethnicity, right? So that your child don't feel like the only one if you're a family that goes to church. And even before that, maybe you start doing that, not just when you get your child, but before that, just to immerse yourself with differences. If you look around your circle, or ask yourself the hard questions. And be honest, is my circle diverse? Is my circle of friends diverse? Nothing, you're not wrong if they're not. It's just sometimes that's just how it is. But consider it when you're thinking of bringing in a child of a different race and ethnicity, how lonely they might be just being different. It's like sometimes it's just the way it is. And then you say, okay, how can I adjust my lifestyle in a way that can make my child of a different race, ethnicity, nationality feel more comfortable in their surroundings. It's imperative that they implement pieces of their culture because their kids are going to question and wonder, what if I was with my Black family, or what if I had my Black culture, what would it look like? Some don't even know because they never had it. I think the most important thing is we just find it in the little areas, right? And we don't ignore it. If questions come up, we answer them. We try to address that head on instead of ignoring it. That's one thing that was a challenge in the beginning, especially when it came to racial questions, because we're kind of taught to try to avoid that and to say, oh, that's just the way it is. But it's important to address them even when they're coming from a 3 and 4-year-old.
Our thanks to Brian for sharing his experience and passion on recognizing the importance of multicultural identity. I'd like to take a moment to note that there is and remains a real need for resource families like the Ugaldes and the Dixons. There are far more kids in need of a foster family than there are available families, especially families who could care for older children. And in the foster care world, kids aged 6 years old and up are considered older. We're always looking for families who want to serve in this way and are committed to addressing the trauma experienced by kids in care. If you are considering foster care or adoption or know of someone who is, please contact us or have them contact us to learn more. We'd also like to share a couple more side notes about the wraparound care we provide, particularly our Family Life Education Unit. Among the many services they provide, they have secured a grant to provide special classes for families in Lancaster County with children on the autism spectrum. The program provides education and support for these families and helps them realize they are not alone on this journey. And the Family Life Education Unit has become the national facilitator of training for an evidence-based program called the Blues Program. This 6-week course is for teenagers experiencing stress, anxiety, and depression. It teaches the skills to help teens cope with these negative thoughts. The program has been wonderfully received by those who have completed the course. COBYS has become the trainer of professionals across the country who will be conducting these much-needed classes. Like parents are with their kids, we are very proud of the work being done in all our units of service. COBYS really does strive to provide a collaborative, comprehensive kind of care for our kids and our families. But how does it end for Layla and our kids? Let's find out.
The process continues for Layla and kids like her. She does her best to adjust to her current surroundings in her foster home. But as comfortable as this setting is for her, it is still unsettling. Until the foster care process concludes, her future is in many ways out of her hands. Will her parents meet their objectives and milestones and be reunified with Layla and her brother Salvador? Is another option in her future. Children like Layla live with uncertainty and maybe days every day. And not all endings are happy. There's a reason those stories that end and they lived happily ever after are called fairy tales. Because in social services, even in the seemingly happiest, most secure outcomes like adoption, which can be filled with hope and promise, there has still been loss. A child may have a new adoptive family that loves them as one of their own, but there are biological parents who lost their child. That child lost their first parents. Reunified families rejoice in being together again, but live with the history of a split and face a lifelong journey to stay on the right path. Even in the joy, there can still be underlying trauma and sadness, often referred to as double-dip feelings. But hope is tenacious, and it is our goal to make sure children like Layla are never without it on their journey toward their future.
When I see progress, it's very rewarding. When I can look back and see where children were when they first came to me and where they're at now, or when I discharge them, it gives me a lot of hope. And when I see kids being able to manage life and engage in relationships in healthy ways when they weren't able to do that before. That just fills my heart with joy and gives me the energy to keep doing what I'm doing.
I think it's just very important to help children, and I think children in foster care are some of the most vulnerable population that exists, and I think it's awesome to be a part of their story. And it's like one of the worst things a child could go through, but you can see such promising things come from it, and you can see a good come out of a really bad situation, and that's, I think, rewarding for me and of course the families and the kids that we work with.
I feel that there are a lot of children in the world that are put in really unfortunate and scary situations, and that all children deserve to be safe, all children deserve to feel loved, all children deserve to know their worth. And when they are in situations like this, I can only imagine that it probably is really easy for them to feel like they have done something wrong and that they are worthless. And so I think it's important to have people to make sure that they're cheering them on and encouraging them and making sure that they know that they are worthy of love, and that they are worthy of being safe and being protected and being with people who are committed to protecting them.
Driven by our mission and with the generosity of our supporters, children and families who are served by us will experience the COBYS difference.
Well, not knowing the ending isn't terribly satisfying regarding Layla's case, but that is the reality of so many kids. They wait. Cases drag on. Having this case wrapped up in a nice bow with a reunited, rejuvenated, clean, stable family would have been a more satisfying Hollywood ending. But remember, we told you at the outset that this is about reality. So many cases are in limbo. I will tell you that our staff is very experienced, and they often have a pretty good idea as far as reading the signs of behavior as to how a case may go. But every case is different, and people surprise us all the time, one way or the other. So this empty, how does this end feeling is not uncommon. But there is another feeling that helps.
That feeling is hope. The important part to remember, the thing to take away from all this reality, is the phrase, hope is tenacious. Providing the opportunity for hope is baked into the DNA of the COBYS organization. It is present in how we interact with and treat our kids and families. It is meeting them with empathy. It's showing them respect, even in those times when that's really hard to do, knowing what we know about cases. It is showing them potential, a path forward, with a coordinated effort to get them the best possible outcome. It is counseling to provide them with not just a listening ear, but with tools to help them cope with trauma today and moving forward to the future. It is also doggedly pursuing contracts and grants and crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's to make sure our kids and families get every opportunity available to them. It is listening and treating kids and families with something special like a new pair of shoes or a birthday celebration, showing that we're listening and caring for the whole person. It is presenting uncomfortable, honest truths when they need to be said, because that is what is needed to get back on track towards a better future. It is wrangling every opportunity, opening every possible door to get them help to meet their God-given potential. If those statements feel a bit like a roller coaster of potential progress, then hard truths, compassionate support, then a slap in the face with reality, it's because that is the nature of our work. There are peaks and valleys, sometimes dark valleys, but with your help, COBYS can shine a light for a brighter tomorrow, even in those dark valleys. When you support the work we do, You help us provide services in a way that is honorable, compassionate, and hopeful to people who are in desperate need of compassion and hope. You are there with us too. You, our friends and supporters of COBYS, sometimes longtime financial supporters, others may be newly connected with us. Allow the listening, the care, and the special items and experiences to happen. When you financially support COBYS through general fund gifts after presentations or events like this one, and throughout the year, you are allowing the organization to function, allowing us to hire caseworkers who care, who listen. When you donate to a specific fund of ours, like the COBYS Care Fund, the care is transformed into the extras for kids, like shoes and birthday gifts, because we have caseworkers who understand the importance of a pair of Vans shoes to a teenage boy, or birthday cupcakes and a visit with biological family for a teenage girl living in congregate care. You are supporting COBYS Care, the big things we do and the little things we do. Yes, hope is tenacious. Your financial support helps make it so.
And since the reality of our documentary was left somewhat unsettled on purpose, we couldn't let you go with only that feeling tonight. So one more aspect of this annual program we're going to keep in place is to show you some of the families who have experienced a happier ending to their story. Here are photos of some of our kids who are on their life journey with their adoptive families. This is why we do what we do, and one of my favorite traditions of the program. Enjoy. There you have it, the reality, the frustration, the joy, the hope of the work we do at COBYS. Thanks to each of you for viewing this presentation, for caring about our clients, for generously financially supporting COBYS. We know that many provide financial gifts throughout the year, but if you are so inclined to make a donation at this time, you can do that online at cobys.org and choose the Donate Now button at the top of the page. You are also welcome to send a check to our office at 1417 Oregon Road, Leola, Pennsylvania, 17540. I'd like to end now in prayer. Will you please join me? Dear God, we are thankful for this time this evening. We're thankful for the ministries of COBYS. We're thankful for the supporters of COBYS, those that partner with us to provide these services to kids and families. We ask that you especially this evening bless those kids and families in their journey and bless us as our staff as we continue to help them along that journey. We ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thanks again for joining us, and safe travels.